Are illegal campervans still being sold? Are you driving a campervan that is breaking the law? A campervan that is not built to regulation? How is your weight, your wheels, your tyres, your kitchen units, your speed, your pop top, your luggage, and more? Can you tell me everything that I discuss is 100% right, legal, and within regulation for your van? I made a previous video pointing out some of the issues, and I've seen changes, positive changes, which is absolutely amazing. But there are still problems that you need to be aware of, with things that many people are still doing that could lead to a big fine or possibly something much worse. Some will say that they already know it all. Well, brilliant, but please don't ignore it. I know some do, and it's not fair on other road users or even pedestrians on the pavement if you lose control. Some will say that I must be fun at parties, but if it helps, if it imparts some information on somebody who wasn't aware and perhaps prevents an accident, then I've succeeded in my goal. Let's get straight into it, and I have noticed a change with it. One of the common problems has been wheels and tyres. Wheels are not as easily spotted, especially as there are also cheaper copies on the market now, which, like a lot of copied products, are far from the quality of the original product which they've actually been copied from. You need to be buying from a reputable supplier. Wheels have to be load rated, and this does vary drastically from vehicle to vehicle, especially from a car to a van. You can see here that on a Volkswagen Transporter plaque, what the maximum weight of the vehicle is, but also the maximum weight of the axles. It's this that shows you what the minimum rating should be. Half the maximum axle weight is the minimum load rating the wheels and tyres should be. So if we're talking transporters, we can see on this table here what the minimum rating should be. So if you've got a T32 VW Transporter, it needs to have a minimum load rated wheel of 860 kilograms. Be very careful, as some conversions have been fitted with underrated wheels, although it's not that easiest thing to check, as it's found stamped on the inside of the actual wheel itself. Until recently, some commonly used wheels on VW Transporters were actually not suitable. People were still buying a lot of these wheels, but they weren't load rated for the actual purpose which they were using them for. They fitted, but they weren't correct. Some campers also may use large car wheels. Are they correctly rated? Incorrectly rated tyres are also a common problem, and this is much easier to check as it's on the outside of the tyre wall. And I'm pleased to say that I have seen an improvement in this. There appears to be fewer vans with underrated tyres. People are becoming more aware, thankfully. This has been a big problem, and you may well have seen in pictures online with people suffering blowouts due to the tyres not being up to the task of having that heavy van or a camper van. The load rating of the tyres needs to be adhered to, and again on screen is the minimums for the VW Transporters. Having a blowout can be a really frightening and a dangerous experience. Not something you want to happen, especially when it could have been prevented. Furthermore, you could be in a lot of trouble if you stopped. Somebody was telling me that vans were being pulled over by VOSA and fines issued in North Devon during this summer. Unfortunately, this isn't something that is checked on a Class 4 MOT, which seems crazy, but I did mention that in a previous video. Just buy the right wheels and the tyres. It's simple, really. But like I've said, this is something that's improved. I'm seeing less underrated tyres now, which is fantastic news. With a lot of these things, people aren't aware that things need to be a certain way. Hence, I'm just raising that awareness so people can spot things and change them if necessary. We often put our trust in professionals. We expect them to do the right things. Yet worryingly, the less reputable ones don't actually even know themselves. Some are not aware of the rules and regulations, a concern in itself. Gas regulations are something that are often overlooked, and it is quite complicated and not exactly straightforward. But installing an appliance in accordance with the instructions would be a pretty good start. The distance above your hob generally should be 500mm, 50cm as shown in the instructions. Measure yours. Is yours? If it isn't, have you got a test certificate? Have you got proof that the additional test was carried out and signed off as being compliant? I do know with some measurements which are less than that 50cm, they have been tested and passed, but only a few. Additionally, how about rubber hoses, storage of gas bottles, dropout vents, etc., etc.? Many aren't done properly. But again, I am pleased to say that these are definitely improving. Word is also spreading about the dropout vent, which is often seen in the passenger step. You can see this because it's being fitted in more and more conversions. That is an NCC requirement and is now being adopted by others, which is great to see. And that's along with the air vent in the pop top. Something I saw a few weeks ago was somebody had been refused a habitation certificate because their pop top didn't have the air vent. Not something I've actually heard of before, especially as it's only a relatively recent requirement, and that is just for the NCC approval. Again though, a lot of these pop tops have now got these, so it is a big step in that right direction. So the newer converted vans are improving, but they aren't all there yet. There is still a huge difference in quality, but that's another story. It does seem though that many of the potentially illegal aspects, broken rules against regulation aspects, are getting better. Part of this is down to you. I know for a fact that you have been asking the questions, you've been querying builds, looking closer at what things are, and I'm really pleased that you're doing that. Let's keep it going. Ask those questions and get the changes where they're needed. There are still things that us as owners are doing wrong though, and we need to change. Not all of us obviously, but some, again, may not actually be aware. A few things here. Firstly, weight, which is a really big one and varies from van to van. And I will keep this really simple here because there is a wide variance from camper to camper, dependent on the base van, the model, the spec, etc. But as an example, on the VW Transporter, vans are named T26, T28, T30, T32, and this refers to the maximum weight of the van. So a T28 has a maximum weight of 2,800 kilograms, and this means that the van and everything in it cannot legally weigh more than that. When you add a camper conversion to the base van, there is a lot of extra weight. The seatbed, the pop top, kitchen units, fridge, hob, sink, water tanks, gas tanks, and that's before you add your luggage, your awning, your food, your drink, your pots, your pans, and anything else which you may wish to take. Perhaps you wish to take your paddleboard, your bike, your golf clubs, your bucket spade, or whatever else you need, and that all adds up to the weight. You may have done a self-build and added more and more without actually thinking about the weight itself. What does your van weigh? Do you actually know? When you pack your van and you take absolutely everything you can cram inside, what does it weigh? Perhaps it could be worth a trip to the public weighbridge just to ensure that your fully loaded camper isn't breaking the law, as unfortunately many are. Fully load your van with everything, fill the tanks, the fuel, luggage, put people in it, put everything which you would use to when you go away, and then test the total weight and then each individual axle. Because although you could be well within the total weight, one of your axles could be over. And weight limits are there for a reason, and going over can affect the vehicle's steering, the suspension, the manoeuvrability, the acceleration or the braking, meaning that an accident could be far more likely. To be honest, you might not be over. I know people that have tested the vans with varying results. Some have actually been far less than they expected it to be, but others have been far more. So go and test it so you know what your limits are, so you know how to pack the van, where to actually put the various different weight within the vehicle. Another thing that many people are doing that is frightening, yet easily avoidable, but actually can be trickier with some conversions more than others, is having an insecure load. When we go away, we need to take things, but we need to take them safely. It's against the law to travel with an unsecure load. Where do you store your luggage? Have you got lots of room behind your seatbed? A rib bed will give you a good amount of space behind. However, some of the rock and roll beds can only give very little space. And I know which one I'd prefer. That is, however, unless you've got a bed on rails, because in that case, you can carry much more because you can give yourself more space by moving the seat forward to give you greater space behind. Luggage not in the cupboards should be secure. Easier said than done, but I don't create the rules. I'm just telling you what you need to be aware of. People can use bungee cords, ropes, nets. All can be used in conjunction with the lashing points, the tie-down points of the vehicle. Secure your items, and this is especially important for heavier items. In the event of a sudden change in direction, slamming on the brakes, maybe an accident, whatever is loose could potentially just act as a missile. It's not just injury that could be a problem though. It could be a big fine if stopped by the police. Let's just have a think before we set off. Just take that extra time just to make sure that that vehicle is safe. Perhaps we could be utilising a roof box for some items to save that precious internal space. Perhaps your bike could go on an external bike rack rather than inside the vehicle. And I'm going to show you that with mine, with my Rider 24 on a tow bar in a few weeks. That's once I've returned from the NEC show, which I'm really, really looking forward to. There's going to be certainly a lot to see at the show. And I'm going to be bringing to you a different kind of video. Maybe if it works out, let's see what happens. But at the show, you're going to be able to see lots of different alternative storage options. Things like the CGL leisure bags, the pods and the other storage facilities they have. There will be no doubt roof boxes from Thule, Latitude Tents, a company that I've actually been wanting to see all year. But because I only do this in evenings and weekends, it does make things quite difficult in amongst the other commitments which I have. I do try and bring the best videos I can, but I am actually quite limited to time. I have got a great video idea in a few weeks' time though, testing out a van. I'm just planning it out now and I'm hoping to hire the van. Yeah, I'm going to be paying to hire the van because VW don't actually know who I am. Oh yeah, it is a VW, but it's not a transporter. Back to the legalities though, and talking insecure loads, and that also includes animals. So if you're travelling with your dog, or perhaps maybe a ferret, then they must be secured. And I believe the maximum fine if you don't is about £5,000. As much as we are seeing people breaking the rules, we are seeing companies help not to break them. Improvements are happening, continually happening, and that's great for us who are trying to stay on the right side of the law, making sure that we are doing things properly. I've seen an improvement which really is brilliant. There are some aspects though that no one else can be responsible for other than ourselves, and that's parking laws and speeding. Parking laws can be broken by anybody, no matter how good your van is. We all need to be very careful and pay attention when we are parking, so we don't park in places that we shouldn't. We don't want a ticket, or even worse, be moved on in the middle of the night. Being moved on can be made worse if the driver's been drinking alcohol, as if you're over the limit, you certainly don't want to be moving your vehicle. The answer there is to make absolutely sure that it's legally allowable to be where you are for the intended purpose. There are things that we should all know, but I know that not everybody does. Speed limits can be a grey area because there are subtle differences. As far as a campervan is concerned, what speed limits should you be adhering to? Now, if you've got an M1 registered campervan, then a campervan will be no problem travelling at those higher speed limits. The police will know that you've got a vehicle which those speed limits are fine. The problem occurs when you've had a panel van conversion. You've had a panel van conversion and then the police stop you or a camera stops you and then you get the prosecution notice because you've been speeding, because the actual database, the computer system which the police use, thinks that you've actually got a panel van. Now, a panel van is subject to those lower speed limits, so that is where you do have to challenge. And there's lots and lots of freely available information online. I think Dubbed Out community in the kind of files section or the about section, I think they've got a letter and they've got a good description on there, which will actually show you, how you can actually appeal if you have had a panel van conversion. So do check out that just to, if you have got a speeding and you've got a camper van, then maybe that ticket isn't actually going to be applicable to you. So do check out those rules, but make sure that you know what those rules actually are. These are all things that we should all know, but I know that not everybody does. So if this has pointed somebody in the right direction and helped in any way, then I've done exactly as I've intended. It's NEC show week this week, and if you want to see some of our previous videos, you can have a look at those here, or the videos from the show you can see here. Take care and thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon.